Good day, everyone. My name is Anna, and it is a lovely, sunny, and colorful spring morning here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today, my cacti are looking their best. It is spring, so this is the time when the cacti are at their best. They're actively growing, and they are flowering at this time of the year. I have a few of my cacti here that are in flower. So I have an Echinopsis, Opuntia, Rebutius, and Sulcorebutius, Parodia, also blooming, and some Mammillarias over here. So there are actually steps that need to be done before they get to this stage. So that is what I am going to be talking about in this video. And then there are also things that need to be done after they bloom. So in this video, I am going to be talking about the do's and don'ts in the different stages of flower development on a cactus. The first stage is the pre-bud formation. That is when your cactus don't have any flower buds on them yet. So there are a few things that I like to do to encourage a cactus to develop buds. The first that I do is to expose them to as much sun as they can take without them burning, of course. So I like this table right here because this table gets early morning sun up to midday, and then around noontime, there's a tree here on the left side that shades it for a while, and then in the afternoon there's like an hour again where the sun will shine from behind it. So this table gets a good amount of sunlight all throughout the day. So those cactus that don't have buds yet, I move them in here hoping that they will form flower buds. And I see a little bud now starting to peek right there, a little pink one. So this is now starting to form buds as well. And this one too, I can see very tiny buds forming on the crown. Take a look at this. I moved this cactus in here about 3 weeks ago, and now I see buds on it yet. Some have no buds yet, so some takes longer. Oh, this one too. See, this one now is in bud. This cactus has been here for about a month now, and it is only now that it's starting to form those little white things. Those are early signs of bud development. And this one is in bud. So I've had success in this table getting them to flower. And then the next thing that I do is, of course, I also fertilize them late winter or early spring. I give them a fertilizer that is formulated for blooming. I like to use Tomato Fertilizer or any fertilizer that is formulated for blooming. If it's not for cactus, I just make sure that I dilute it to half or a third of what is recommended in the bottle. So that's the second thing I do, is I fertilize them. But getting your cacti to flower, of course, you have to ensure first and foremost that they are healthy, they are free of disease, they have no pests, and they are well rooted before they can form their flower buds. This is another spot here where I like to place some of my cacti to encourage them to flower, because this gets a good amount of sunlight and airflow. Which brings me to the second stage of flower development on a cactus, and that is the early signs of bud formation. Right here, this is a Camelobevia or the rose quartz cactus, and I can see little buds now forming on it. Okay, and so at this point, what I do is I just leave them where they at. I don't move them, because if they're forming buds, that tells me that they like the spot where they are at. So this is a Parodia. Let's see if there are buds. Yes. Okay, there are now buds forming. So I will leave them here, and I will try to encourage them to make as much buds as they can at this spot. I don't even try to turn the pot around or the cactus, some cactus will form more buds on the side that's facing the sun, and some of them prefers to form more buds on the back side. Like this cactus, it actually has more buds. You see the reflection there. It has more buds on its back side. But I just let them do their own thing. I let them form their flowers the way they like it. So I try not to move them or even turn them, and because doing so, sometimes they will stop or abort forming their buds. The next stage is the mid stage, when you actually see the buds growing bigger and bigger each day, and they're actually starting to look like flower buds, because usually at the early stage of bud development, sometimes you cannot tell if it's a bud developing or just an offset forming, but at this stage you can clearly see that they are flower buds. This is my Trichocereus flying saucer. So you can see some buds are hairy and some buds are smooth. Gymnocalycium have naked buds. They don't have hair on them, so they're very smooth. Here is another cactus here. This is Lobebia arachnacantha that I consider in the mid stage of flower development. Here is another cactus in bud, and also this one is a little bit more advanced in the stage of its bud development. You can actually see the sepals and a few petals peeking there on top of the bud. So at this stage of bud development, I try to ensure that the cactus is well hydrated. Of course, that doesn't mean you overwater them, but just ensure that they don't get dehydrated for too long, because some cacti are very sensitive. For instance, this Echinopsis here, this is a Echinopsis leucomalia cob. And usually my experience with this cactus is if it gets too dehydrated for too long, it will abort more of its buds. So sometimes I had a year where half of its buds just dropped off. And also at this stage, refrain also from moving them. So like in the previous stage, still keep them where they're at. Do not move them. Echinopsis specifically and Lobebias are very sensitive to being moved while in buds, so they have the tendency to drop their buds if you move them. If ever you are going to move them, try to move them to a spot where the condition is not too different from where they were at previously. So if they are from a sunny position, avoid moving them to a shady position. If they were getting morning sun, do not move them to an afternoon sun suddenly. This Lumbergira cactus or the Thanksgiving cacti are also notorious for dropping their buds. They're very sensitive. Usually you will find these being sold in the stores and they will be packed with flower buds. So you will buy them and bring them home. Don't be disappointed or don't be surprised if you see many of the buds would actually drop. And that is because these are very sensitive. So the change in condition from maybe cool to hot temperature, or less sun to more sun in your backyard, that will cause these cacti to drop their buds. Refrain from repotting your cactus as well when they are forming their buds. But then again, there are some cactus that don't mind at all. They will continue to flower even though you repot them, even though you move them or disturb them. For instance, I find that many mammillarias, those with small flowers at least, they don't seem to mind even though you disturb them while they are developing their buds, and they will still continue to form their flowers. The next stage is the stage of anticipation and excitement, and that is the pre-flower opening stage. So this flower has been open for 2 days now, and then the middle one opened today, and this I can see is the next bud to open. So I would say maybe in 2 to 3 days this flower bud will open. So this is the pre-flower opening stage. Here is another cactus that I can consider that is in its pre-flower opening stage. At this stage, you can clearly see the bud or the petals on the bud, and you can tell actually what flower color it will produce. So this one will have yellow flowers. This Areosyce nidocinilis will give me a pink flower. At this stage of bud development, I don't mind moving them anymore. In my experience, if it is at this stage, even though you move them, they are less likely to drop their buds. As a matter of fact, I have a blooming rack here, and this is where I move all my cacti that are either blooming or about to bloom, because I just want to see them all together like this. I think it looks so pretty if you see them blooming all together with different colors and different textures of flowers. Then we come to the most exciting part of flower development, and that is when they open. So when the flowers open, take note that some of the cactus flowers need heat and sunlight in order for them to open their flowers. Say for instance, Gymnocalycium, they need heat and light before they can fully open their flower. And right now, actually, the sun already moved. As you can see, the sun already in here. Earlier this morning, the sun was on this section, and these opuntia flowers were more open. But as soon as the sun started moving, they're now starting to close. Although some cactus flowers don't mind blooming in shade, some stenocactus can actually bloom even though they are in a shady position. But most of the cacti flowers, they fully open their flowers when they are more exposed to sun and heat. And this blooming rack right here gets a good amount of sun. That's why I put them all together in this section. If ever I want some flower to last longer, I try to move them with the sun just to see them or enjoy them longer that day. Parodias would also bloom better or open their flowers fully if there is sufficient sun and heat. So at this point, I would say enjoy your flowers, take pictures, enjoy them, smell them, show them off to your friends, enjoy them while they last, because some cacti flowers don't last very long. Most of them just last a day or two. You'll be lucky if you get some of them to bloom for a week. I've had some that stayed open for about 5 days. And then there are also some that are night bloomers. They'll bloom at night, and then in the morning they are done. So enjoy them while they last. Another thing that you can do at this stage is you might want to pollinate your flowers in order for them to form fruits, and then you can eventually get seeds out of them. My cacti are outside here in my backyard out in the open, so usually it is the bees that pollinate them, so they are open pollinated. But if you want to ensure that you get cactus fruits and cactus seeds, you can manually pollinate your flowers. And to do that, what I like to use is a brush. You can just brush onto a flower and try to get most of the pollen onto the brush, and then go ahead and move on to another flower. This is by the way a Succulents bicolor. So if you're going to pollinate a flower, you want to pollinate it to another flower in the same genus. Say this is another Succulents here, Canigirelli, although this is about to close now. But this is what I do. So I just go back and forth, rubbing the brush in order to distribute the pollen between the two cactus, and hopefully that will take, and in about a few weeks from now, if you're successful, you will see a cactus fruit developing on that cactus. How I wish that my cactus flowers would always look like this, but we all know that eventually they will wilt and they will start looking like this. This is my Trichocereus flying saucer. It bloomed for 2 days, but now this is how it looks like. So this brings us to the last stage of flower development, and that is when the flowers are already spent. Now, what do we do when we have cactus that looks like this? Well, if you're like me, I do nothing. I just let them wilt. Usually I just let them go dry and they will fall off by themselves. A very big flower such as this will take like several days, even weeks, before the flowers would actually fall off by itself. But the smaller the flowers are, usually the easier or the faster that the flower buds will wilt and fall off by themselves, such as this one. As you can see, it just fell off by itself, so I can just remove this. And then if you want to remove them, just make sure you give them a little tug. If they come off easily like this, then you can remove them. But if there is still some resistance, avoid removing them or you might damage the cactus. But if you are bothered by this look and you want to remove the flower right away, at this stage I would advise you not to pull it. What you can do is you can cut off this portion right here to get rid of this ugly dried flower on top and leave a small portion still attached to the cactus. Wait for that little part there to dry out until such time that you can easily remove it. At this stage, if I pull this flower off, I run the risk of damaging the cactus. Part of the cactus might come off with a flower. So if my cactus has a big wound right there, I am exposing it to pathogens that could introduce fungi or bacteria to infect my cactus plant. Your cactus may have done a super bloom, but a few days after, they will start looking like this. So this is not a very pretty sight to look at. So you can just gently tug on them, and if they come off easily, you can remove them. But sometimes you'll be lucky, they will actually start forming fruits. Now I think this is forming fruits. So you can see the swelling at the bottom. Those are signs that they may be forming fruits. So if you tug on them and they don't come off, leave them for now, and eventually watch out, you might get actual cactus fruits. This is a spent flower bud with no fruit developing underneath it, so I can just simply remove this. However, this one right here, my Echinopsis mirabilis, I can clearly see that there is a fruit developing in there. Now, as far as I know, all cactus fruits are edible, but then this fruit is so tiny that you'll just end up eating mostly seeds. So you can either let this develop and eventually harvest it and get the seeds out of it, and then you can grow more cactus. Or if you're not interested in growing cactus from seed, you can simply remove that fruit. But again, be very careful and be gentle. You do not want to damage the cactus in the process. I see a cactus fruit here that already dropped. So if you want to know when to harvest cactus fruits, how to remove the seeds and clean them, I made a video and you will see the link below this video. So those are my do's and don'ts on the various stages of flower development on a cactus. If you guys have any more suggestions or comments, feel free to drop them below this video. So follow me on Facebook and in Instagram. And until next time, bye guys and cheers!